Hey folks, this is going to be a little bit of a longer weekly check-in than normal. We do have a few things to cover this week that are building up a little bit, so I just wanted to preface that before you start watching it, that this one might be a little bit longer. But I hope you guys had a great weekend, and I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, so I mentioned last week that because we did have a pretty light week last week, we just had that color theory discussion and the second quiz that this week would be a little bit heavier. We are going to have lessons 6 and 7 that we'll need to go over in the Ed Puzzle folder. And we also have an assignment, the lesson 6 time and motion assignment. We've got our midterm project outline and quiz 3. So lots of stuff on the agenda this week. Let's jump over though to module 3 and we'll get started looking at all of those things. So the first thing, as always, is our Ed puzzles. We'll want to do those first. And I want to just remind you guys that everything that is in the lessons Ed puzzle, like or the modules Ed puzzle folder, are Ed puzzles that you do need to watch just because it's just lesson 6 and 7, like this is all we have this week. But if there are any additional ones that say or like single titles, like for the first module, we had like the What is Art and Shut Close and Who Decides What Art Means. Those are all participation points. So just because it's on the course info, it says lessons whatever through whatever Ed puzzles, that does mean everything in the Ed puzzle is going to be counted for a grade. So just don't think that just because it doesn't say it exactly like that in the course information that it's not meaning like the whole Ed puzzle folder. It's meaning, everything in the Ed puzzle folder needs to be watched. And once you've completed those, you can kind of decide where you want to go from there. You can either do the quiz 3, just as always, 10 questions, multiple choice, all of that, or you can do the time and motion assignment first. So for the time and motion assignment, this is based on lesson 6, where we learn about what time and motion is and how it plays a factor in our elements and principles of design. What you're going to want to do here is watch the Rafiq Anadol's TED Talk, Art in the Age of the Machine Intelligence, or Age of Machine Intelligence, and the brief video of his work interconnected at the Charlotte airport. I may have taken that one. Oh, wait, no, I've got it still. I thought maybe I had taken that one off, but I just included that one because it is something that's pretty local. And the Charlotte airport, if you've gone there in the last like year or so, you'll know it's like very under construction right now. But I'm not sure if this piece is still up right now or not, but it has been at the airport for a very long time. So after you watch those 2 videos, you'll want to write a 400 minimum word analysis of his work, answering the questions in the following format. So I would like you to respond. I mean, you can kind of like bullet this if you want to, but you do need to like respond in full sentences and in essay format. So don't, just write 1 or 2 words. You need to answer these in full sentences, like I'd say 1 to 2 sentences at least each. So question 1 is, what is the difference between actual texture and visual texture, and which one does Anadol employ in his work, and how does he employ it? Second is, how does he use the elements of time and motion in his work? So just point to where those things come into place. It could be metaphorically or it could be physically, whatever makes the most sense based on what you've watched. What are his ideas, inspirations, and or concepts that drive the creation of his work? What is the source material or subject matter in his abstract image representations? And we know what subject matter is based on lessons 1 and 2. What kind of technology does he use in the creation of his work? This is just a, stating a fact kind of thing. What are your thoughts on artificial intelligence and its use as a tool for creating artwork? Number 6 is kind of an interesting one because I'm not really talking about like digital art, and I think that's what people think a lot of the times that like AI art is. But think about all those like applications and things you can download now to make yourself, you can like put your pictures in there and it creates like a portrait of you or your pet or whatever it might be. And I think I'm not trying to sway your opinion one way or the other on this, but AI art definitely has a place, I think, in, our just advancement as a society. It's, kind of describing ourselves and our surroundings and like how things are developing. But it does have the tendency to steal from artists in a way that I don't think is great for artists because they're not being credited. So yeah, just do your research on that. Just kind of like search around of how AI art is affecting the art world, and what changes it's bringing as well. So I know I say here listing and bullet points will not receive credit, but as long as you're answering these questions in full sentences, that's really what I want you to do. So this is a direct submission, so you do not have to comment to anybody. Just upload as a PDF document or a Word document, and you should be good to go. Remember, no links. Please do not submit these as a link. And any photos that you want to include, make sure that you add them as an attachment and you don't just like drag and drop. And then the last thing that we've got on the agenda is the midterm project outline. So it's very, very important that you have done all of the other lessons material before you get into the midterm project outline. Otherwise, you're going to be confused and not know how to start on this. So that's why we cover lessons 1 through 3 before getting into the midterm project. But that is approaching us next week. So just keep that on the horizon. So, all right, moving on. Midterm project outline, you're going to want to have already chosen or choose an artwork for the project one art analysis. The one that you use for your outline has to be the same one that you use for your actual project. The goal is to establish a basic outline that you will further develop when writing your paper. You must stick with this artwork for the full assignment, and please provide the following information below and be as detailed as possible with it. Remember, this is for your use later on. If your research is not thorough, you will just make making it harder for yourself in the future. So, the art analysis for this course is viewing and analyzing an artwork. Remember, this is just an outline. Blah blah blah. I think I'm just repeating myself there. Just kind of in a daze. So what we're going to do is answer the prompts below to establish your outline for your intended art analysis paper. 1, you'll want to identify your chosen artwork to analyze and list the title, artist name, medium, date, dimensions, and the museum and location. You also want to include a high quality image of the artwork. Remember, don't just like drag and drop. You need to save the image to your computer and then upload it as an attachment. So I've kind of broken this down into how you can think about what you're gathering, like or the information that you're gathering. Remember that really what this paper is telling me in like the final version of it is that I want to know that you understand subject matter, form, and content, and you're able to apply those things to an artwork. So for form, for your outline, what you want to gather is what 3 formal elements in the composition or what are 3 formal elements in the composition and how do you intend to discuss them? So you'll need to refer to lessons 3 through 6 for the elements and briefly describe how each of these 3 elements are used and point to the specific parts in the artwork. Now, I do think it's important to consider like what your principles are going to be that you choose when you're choosing your elements. So I'm going to kind of talk about this in the way that I want you to be thinking about this. So you'll know that, our ingredients, the formal elements, are things like color, value, shape, line, and those help to organize the principles of design. So for example, Starry Night, my example that we can't use, unfortunately, because that's my example that I use all the time. I want to say that I'm going to talk about color, texture, and line for Starry Night. So those are my 3 elements, and I can say, the color is used through the blues and the oranges. Line is used through the gestural lines made throughout the sky to suggest like motion and wind. And what was it? Texture is created also through the brush strokes and the brush quality. And then those things help to create principles, like, for example, emphasis is, let's say that I want to use emphasis as one of my principles of design. So I'm going to talk about how color helps to organize, like organizing color helps to create emphasis. So it creates a contrast by the orange yellow stars in the sky and contrast with the blue, because going back to our color theory slide, we know that blue and orange are contrasting complementary colors. So if an artist chooses to use those 2 colors together intentionally, that can create emphasis. And hopefully that makes sense to you, but this is what I mean by like you're identifying formal elements and formal principles of design, and you're applying and actually seeing how these elements of design have been organized by an artist to then create principles of design, thus creating a successful artwork. You need to have organization within your artwork in order for it to be successful. Otherwise, it's going to seem too chaotic and disorganized and not well designed. So, three formal elements that can then tie in with two organizing principles. So, Starry Night, line, texture, color helps to create emphasis and uh, balance within the piece. I'll just say those two things. And then I use those elements to help imply those. So, which two organizing principles of design do you intend to discuss, and how are these two principles of design created from the elements that you chose in the question one? I.e., the use of monochromatic color creates unity. Please refer to lesson 7 for the principles of design. So, if you need to go back and look at those things, see examples of how different elements can help to create principles of design, lesson 7 is where you're going to want to look for those. The second bit that I want you to do is to research the artist's intention of the work, reference Who Decides What Art Means video from Module 1, or if this is unknown, research how the work was widely received and write 1 to 2 sentences describing your findings. And then lastly, what is your interpretation of the work? Just briefly, what do you feel? What emotions do you get from it? And then lastly, together, how can you see form relating to content, i.e. the monochromatic color form creates a feeling of depression and sadness content. So, that's how you're connecting those two things. And just talk a little bit as to, in your final paper, how you're going to make that argument of like, this work is successful or it's not successful because the form does or does not relate to the content. So hopefully all that makes sense. This is not new information that I'm giving you right now. I'm not giving a lesson necessarily. This is all stuff that we have talked about in modules 1 through 7. So this should not feel like new info to you if you're hearing it for the first time. Just kind of trying to help you understand the setup of this and what I'm wanting to see when I'm looking at these. I want to understand that you understand form and content, how to apply form, the understanding of form and content, or not really apply, but how you can identify the form and content in an artwork. And then you can create your own educated opinion on the artwork and, tell me whether or not you think it's good or bad. I might learn something new in this that I didn't know before. So here is an example that I would like for you to use as a reference. So I've got all my information there. I've got my sentences drawn out. They're not super long, but they're going to help me a lot when I write the final version of this paper, which is going to be next week. If you have any questions about this, please, 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 let's try to meet this week and I can help to like further clarify this for you, because this is a really kind of difficult concept to grasp sometimes. Once you understand it, you can just do it automatically. And sometimes I don't really think about it as being something that is something you really have to learn. And so I have a hard time whenever I'm teaching a lot of the times, remembering that students sometimes don't immediately understand this concept or like immediately understand this formula for things. But once you get it, you can apply it, to artwork and really to anything. If something is physically not making sense with what its intention is, then there is some kind of flaw happening there. Whether it's with artwork, whether it's with mathematical equations, whether it's with an architectural footprint, whatever it is, if the form is not matching what the content is and the content is not being reflected from the form, then there's a problem. There's like a disconnect there. So I want to see that you can understand that and not only understand it, but apply it to something, which is your chosen artwork. But yeah, that is what we've got on the agenda for this week. I know it's a lot. Ed puzzles, outline, lesson 6 assignment, and the quiz, all things that we need to complete this week, no later than Sunday at 11:59. And if you have any questions at all, this would definitely, I mean, I know it doesn't really seem like we're at the halfway point. We've still got, a really good chunk of time left, but we are kind of like rounding several like little breaks in the schedule. We've got like a little intermittent break, the 19th and the 20th of this month. We've got spring breaks coming up, all those kinds of things. And the second semester, it always just like tumbles and gets to the end so quickly that stuff will kind of sneak up on you sometimes. But at this point, we've gone through 3 of the 8 modules. So this will be a great time to check in with me if you are having any concerns or doubts about the content or just your understanding of the course, because we will start to kind of like, move forward from the information that we have so far, which is like this kind of basics, understanding, evaluating artwork sort of stuff. And we'll get into more art history and mediums and things like that. And I won't reference this kind of stuff quite as much. But I'll still expect that you're applying it and, able to kind of use it with the future content. So if you do feel like you need that meeting, let me know that sometime this week. Otherwise, though, I hope you guys have a wonderful remainder of your week and that all of your other classes go good. And I will check in with you on Monday of next week.